I want to begin by...
Just cut it off her face.
Okay, let me try again.
Welcome to Perspective, a place where we talk about faith, culture and life and our perspective and God's perspective on that. So today I'm joined with
Miguel,
Wes,
Alex.
and I'm Braden. Today we're going to be talking about the rise of Christian persecution in our world.
Recently what's just happened is the massacre in New Zealand, the mass killing.
You're watching 9 News with the latest breaking news unfolding in Christchurch, where there have been two separate shootings at two mosques, one at the Al Noor Mosque in Hudley Park, the other at the Linfield Mosque.
In New Zealand, where 40 people have been confirmed killed and more than 20 wounded.
You know, we were talking about Christian persecutions, but these were Muslims being persecuted as well. What are you guys' thoughts? Is it any different? Is it relatable?
It's kind of hit us pretty hard, I would say. Like, that's what's been on the media heaps around here. But at the end of the day, this stuff happens all the time across the world. It's just, this particular one in New Zealand, probably more hard to hear in my mind because it's here in New Zealand.
Yeah.
All these things are happening in developing countries. Oh,
Yeah.
That wouldn't happen here. That wouldn't happen here.
Sure.
But then when it does happen here.
Sure. But what's interesting is there are places where it's expected and there's places that it's not really expected. I think this is one of the cases where no one really saw this really happening.
because New Zealand has a reputation of just being a peaceful country.
With a score of 1.192 and with low levels of violent crimes. New Zealand also has a comprehensive government safety regulation program, a small sustainable population, and very little disease. New Zealand is a safe place to call home.
Being from New Zealand, like everyone's like kind, everyone's like friendly to each other, and then this happens. Everyone from the world is surprised. Like, why did this happen here?
Because you're absolutely right. Like, think worse things happening off in other places, but no one asks any questions. No one posts videos of like, oh, you know, we're thinking of praying of you. But when it happens to certain places, they get that support, in a sense. A lot of Christians in general have questions about persecution. Like, there are people in the stage of life where persecution comes to them, then they think it's a bad thing, that they're doing something wrong and they get out of it. Where some people on the other end are like are welcoming persecution.
I think it like refers to that quote that we were just looking at before.
It says, when faith becomes free, the value of Jesus drops. I want you to pray persecution never leaves China.
Has a lot of implications in that, eh?
Heavy quote.
Yeah.
These
sure.
people who are being persecuted are praying that persecution doesn't leave. They want us to pray that persecution doesn't leave. Like, that's humbling. It brings a whole new meaning to this.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we don't even see the other side of the coin, which is their perspective, but they see it from our perspective as well. They can see that not being persecuted is actually a comfort zone.
Yeah.
And where they are is right in the firing line.
Let me ask the question then. What are the benefits of being persecuted, if there are any?
It says this in James chapter 1. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. So let perseverance finish its work, so you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. When you face persecution, it builds up perseverance, it builds up character, and makes us stronger. Not as it's so, all these people that are facing persecution, for those who don't know, people are dying for this. People are being imprisoned in China, in North Korea. That's the number one place where people are most persecuted. Somalia.
Christian persecution in some parts of the world is, quote, close to meeting the international definition of genocide, with Christians being targeted by extremist groups in the Middle East, Sub-Saharan Africa, and East Asia.
There's a lot of countries where people are murdered for their faith, and the people who are willing to die for that, they very much so believe in their message. Like, the fact that they're willing to go through this persecution means that this message is something that is important to them. We're not really faced with those
Not here in Australia.
Not to that degree as well.
Not to that degree.
Yeah.
At this point in time, we still have that freedom of worship.
Yeah.
And so we kind of like, in a way, take for granted these privileges that we have for now.
We're losing sight of the benefits of hardship, of trials in people's lives. Not something that everyone wants to have, but it's a given. Not whether you're Christian or not, you're going to have hard times. But something I found really quite interesting in reading a book, The Insanity of God, was...
Is Jesus worth it? There begins a pilgrimage of sitting at the feet of believers in persecution and ask them, teach us.
A man who was imprisoned for his faith for many years, and years after he came out of prison, he was with his grandson and went to church, and he realized church was just so different. They were very quiet, you know, they were just going through the motions. There was no really passion and no sacrifice, I guess, in their daily lives. And this man who'd been in prison for so many years, he just walked up and left church. The grandson approached him and said, like, well, what's wrong? And he's saying he's upset with the church. He's upset with you guys, like, you have so much freedom to do so much, and you guys just sit there and do nothing. He says to his grandson, you should never give up in freedom what others never gave up in persecution. Now that, to me, that speaks a lot, because the responsibility lies on my shoulders in I guess, sharing my faith. Persecution is almost inevitable when you're trying to live a godly life, a good life, in a sense, you can even say.
What are the ways that you can be persecuted?
Yeah.
Well, an example is when I gave my life to God, when I tried to live out my faith, I decided to stop working on Saturdays, on my Sabbath.
And then also Jesus observed Sabbath as well.
Yeah.
So it's one day where I don't check my emails, I don't respond to work calls, I don't read
from
any script.
Friday night
sundown to Saturday night sundown.
I stopped going out to nightclubs. You know, you don't drink, and it's crazy because you get ridiculed for not doing those things. They kind of blame your religion or your faith because you can't have fun. That's one way I've kind of understood. Very, very mild persecution.
Yeah. It's a level of persecution.
Yeah.
When I was studying theology, I'd try and avoid that conversation, because as soon as you say you're doing that, everyone feels the need to tell you everything about their church history or opinions on religion and all of that, and it's a lot. It's a lot sometimes, but my rights haven't really been infringed upon.
Like, how should Christians respond to persecution?
There's been a few in that book, The Insanity of God. I've seen a movie version of that, and some of the stories I've heard through Open Doors as well. One that really stuck with me is this guy, Dimitri. He was a pastor in Russia, I think, and he started this house group, this house church thing. This is not really legal for him to do because it's not sanctioned by the government. They have churches, they have state churches, but they're pretty dispassionate. Anyway, he started his own thing. It gathers growth, it gets growth. And then they don't like it, so they put him in jail. He gets thrown in jail. And then he's memorised the Bible, he's writing passages of scripture down. The guards find out, they come in, they beat him. They don't like him doing this, obviously. And what had happened is every morning he would sing this song, and it's called his heart song. And the other prisoners hated him. They would ridicule him and just diss him and bag him out and all of that, even to the point of throwing poo at him. That's what it said on the thing. Right. Pretty intense. And then they tricked him into thinking that they'd taken his wife, taken his kids as prisoners and killed them. Apparently that's what they used to do to a number of prisoners, to try and torment the prisoners a little bit, convince them that they'd got to their family. He's devastated, he's a broken man, and all they wanted him to do was renounce his faith. Renounce your faith, just renounce it, just give it up. What's the point? There's no point in holding on to this. So, but he wouldn't do it. He held fast, he held on strongly to what he believed, and he'd faithfully sing that song every morning. And it got to the point where they were going to execute him, and they take him away, and all of a sudden, all of the other people in all the cells start singing his song, which is on the movie. It's an amazing scene, even though it's not an actual event. But everyone respected him for his faith and what he believed. He didn't end up dying. He got away somehow and was released. So it was a happy ending in the end. But these are people who are being broken, like every little thing, like getting your family, doing all these things, and he would not renounce his faith in Jesus. He held tight to what
modern day Job. In a sense.
Job, yeah, 100%.
And Job loses everyone and everything that he cares about. It is devastating. And remember, he deserves none of this. God himself said so.
The remarkable thing is that in the midst of all this suffering, Job still praises God.
Your story reminds me of something that Daniel and his 3 friends experienced. Daniel was persecuted because he wouldn't, his friends, him and Daniel, they stood up because they wouldn't eat that diet that the king had for them.
King's food, yeah.
And being the king's food, that's like the best food. You know, like
who are you to turn down the king's food?
Buffet every day. But like they had a standard that God's standard. And also not just like, so they were thrown into the fire, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, they weren't like scared. The more persecutions they faced, the more faithful they were to God. And I think that's really like a way that we can like look at in terms of reacting to persecution.
I mean, in the Solomon Islands, like we go every year. My partner's dad owns the NGO that we go on. We go and install water systems into villages and stuff like that. So it's you get to see in the islands where it's like this unfiltered faith, where people kind of have these experiences like daily, like what we're talking about. But in particular, like when we've installed water projects there before, there's been other communities of other faiths that have like cut into their water supply because they are Seventh-day Adventist or because they're getting help from outside. And so it's kind of like this battle that they have to face there. These are our beliefs, and we're still going to stand for that regardless. And it even like speaks more on the fact that they get these water systems because of their reliance on God. It's not because we came in there and we gave them this water system. Like they work for it themselves, they install it themselves as well. But it's because of their faith that they actually got this water system. Because like the word went around the islands of what we were doing in the Solomon Islands, and this man said he'd been waiting for a few years for us to actually come, and we'd not known who he was or anything, and he'd said we were on a boat and the storm was crazy, and so we had to go onto shore. And we came onto shore, and this guy said, "I've actually been waiting for you guys for like years. We've heard about what you guys do here, and we've been waiting for you." And the storm blew us into this part of the island, and like it just shows like I'm not one for like superstition or anything like that. I believe that everything it happens for a reason. Yeah. And so like God, through persecution and through trials, brings you into, and like the storm is like the perfect metaphor for that.
You just reminded me, a friend of mine told me when he traveled to a similar place that didn't have much, he said the spiritual culture, the mindset was different. And he said, here in Australia where everything's easy, Christianity is a lifestyle. But he said in some places it's life. People are praying for food. Man, we don't really know what hunger is, man. We may be hungry, but you know when you're gonna eat next. You know what I mean? Like some people don't, and like in there's places and there's people who, you know, their persecution is like they're not being fed. It's not so much they're getting beaten or they're getting ridiculed. A lot of times people are just being like withheld from daily living things that we just take for granted, man. And I just wonder, like, you know, didn't Jesus say something like, "Blessed are those who are persecuted for my name, for theirs is the kingdom of God"? And you just wonder, like, these people who are going through hard times are promised heaven. That takes a lot of faith, man. You need to have some solid ground.
That's true. Where there's a lot of persecution, there's people with strong faith. Yeah,
churches grow with this persecution.
Yeah. And I think that's like, we see the article that we just read, like the one from Open House?
Open Doors.
Open Doors, sorry.
That's right.
Yeah. And like the churches,
I'm sorry.
the churches are growing where people are persecuted, and that, like, the persecution doesn't stop them.
It's an interesting phenomenon. That's statistically the thing. When it's a country where churches are persecuted, it generally seems to grow. like significantly.
It seems just so backwards, eh?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like that will be the way. But